10 de la mañana en punto, muy buenos días a todos, qué gusto volverlos a ver en esta nuestra tercera sesión ya de Generación Consciente, el programa inspiracional orientado hacia la acción que el Grupo Bancolombia ha creado con el objetivo de que las empresas y las organizaciones que hoy nos acompañan generen el impulso necesario para la transformación que requieren nuestras sociedades. Mi nombre es Jorge Espinosa, yo soy periodista, soy uno de los realizadores del Guapo, el podcast en español del periódico The Washington Post. Me alegra mucho que hayan acudido de nuevo a nuestra cita de cada semana, aunque les recuerdo, esto es importante, que si por algún motivo no pudieron asistir a una de nuestras sesiones pasadas, a la primera o a la segunda, encontrarán los documentos acerca de los temas que tratamos en la página del evento por la que se conectaron a este evento en vivo. Queremos invitarlos también a responder unas preguntas que servirán, cuyas respuestas van a servir para que cada uno vaya construyendo su propio legado. Las encuentran en la página del evento y se demoran apenas un par de minutos contestando las preguntas. Recuerden que ese legado será el resultado concreto de nuestro programa, esa declaración de intenciones determinada por las características de su liderazgo y que finalmente va a determinar los pasos a seguir que cada integrante de esta generación consciente quiere asumir. También queremos recordarles que tienen un par de regalos muy útiles para complementar todo este proceso y los tienen desde hace ya unos días. El primero de esos regalos es la versión electrónica con el código de descarga del libro de Raj Sisodia sobre capitalismo consciente y del audiolibro de la doctora Nea Sangwan, que es una de las mentes que está también detrás de este proyecto formativo de Generación Consciente. Sabemos que muchos de ustedes ya conocen lo que voy a mencionar, pero puede ser que para algunos estas instrucciones de uso sean nuevas, así que vamos a repasarlas juntos. Trataré de hacerlo despacio. En primer lugar, recuerden usar la aplicación de Teams instalada en sus equipos, a la que acceden haciendo doble clic en el icono en su escritorio, y esto es porque la versión web no cuenta con todas las opciones del trabajo colaborativo. En segundo lugar, es importante que usen audífonos como los que tengo yo o de casco. Esa es la mejor manera de que se evite el doble registro de sonido cuando estemos conversando en el grupo. Durante este evento en vivo vamos a estar muy pendientes, como estuvimos en el la primera y segunda sesión, de las respuestas y los comentarios que tengan. Para hacerlas, las pueden escribir en la sección de Q&A, de preguntas y respuestas de este evento en vivo, y las iremos recopilando para formularlas en los momentos que tenemos reservados para esa actividad. También ha llegado a sus correos hoy un mensaje con el vínculo a su breakout room. Van a hacer clic en él y se podrán desplazar directamente, cuando llegue el momento, al salón de trabajo donde los estará esperando el facilitador cuando sea la hora del trabajo en equipo. También compartiremos esos vínculos a través del área de preguntas y respuestas, pero es muy importante que estén atentos al encabezado, porque ahí se va a indicar a qué grupo pertenece cada vínculo. Una última información de servicio: la mayoría de nosotros hablamos español y gran parte del evento, sin embargo, se va a desarrollar en inglés. Por eso hemos habilitado la aplicación de Interactio para la traducción simultánea. Ese uso no tiene ningún misterio. Si no lo han hecho, lo que tienen que hacer es descargar la aplicación de la tienda de su smartphone, del teléfono inteligente que tengan, abrir e introducir el código GC, Generación Consciente, GC 2020. De inmediato presionan play y pueden oír la traducción de la experiencia a través del dispositivo móvil. Si están en alguna de las breakout rooms que necesitan traducción o la van a usar para la parte final de esta sesión, simplemente desplacen hacia la izquierda del menú que tienen en la pantalla del teléfono e identifiquen su opción. Entremos en materia. La palabra clave de la sesión de hoy, de esta tercera sesión, como sabrán los que pudieron repasar el material de pre-work que queda alojado en la página del evento, es propósito. Ya hablamos la semana pasada del propósito personal y de los niveles de escucha, porque, como ya veremos a continuación, es indispensable oír, escuchar lo que nos están diciendo nuestros propósitos personales para hacerlos trascender hacia un propósito empresarial. Pero me estoy adelantando, así que quiero comenzar saludando al hombre que ha construido este programa para nosotros y que nos acompaña en este proceso de convertirnos en una generación consciente. Para mí, como siempre, es un gusto saludar al coautor y el hombre que está detrás del bestseller de Conscious Capitalism y cofundador y codirector de Conscious Capitalism Inc. Él ha escrito más de 11 libros, muchos artículos que han aparecido en publicaciones financieras y de negocios muy importantes del planeta. Antes de comenzar, quisiera que Raj nos llevara de la mano por los aprendizajes de la sesión anterior. Raj, good morning. Thank you so much for being with us again. Could you walk us through the main messages of the last session? Maybe we can remember those things that you think are important to keep in mind today. Hello, Raj, how are you? I think you're mute. Yes. Thank you, Raj.
Good morning, Jorge, and good morning to everybody else. Very happy to be back with you for this third session. Time is going fast. I think we're having a wonderful journey together. We started this journey by looking at how the world is changing and how business needs to change and adapt with higher consciousness and a healing orientation. We then learned about ourselves, our bodies, what causes us stress and anxiety, how we can unhook from that so that we can actually pick up the important signals that we really need to act upon. Neha and I then shared our personal journeys and how we discovered our own purpose in our lives by understanding the highs and lows of our own journey. There's when we follow your bliss and you follow your heartbreak, as we talked about, you find in there a hint as to what is really your unique purpose in this life. We also then learned about the art of listening very deeply, listening empathetically, listening for the values, listening for the emotions underneath the words, and that listening is a prerequisite to understanding. Everything in life is about paying attention and caring, right? So how do we pay attention? By truly and deeply listening. And so that journey will continue now today. So it's really about listening to ourselves, listening to others, and listening to society. What does the world need? What does the planet need, right? What are all of those things, and where is our greatest opportunity to serve? So today we're going to talk about how do we discover, how do we implement, and how do we assess and measure the purpose of our organizations. And for that we have, I would consider the world's leading expert on purpose, Haley Rushing, who will be with us for the rest of this session, and we will introduce her more a little bit later. But I'd like to start by providing a little overview, an introduction to the whole domain of business purpose. I'll just share my slides here.
Yes, we're seeing the slide.
Okay, thank you. So business purpose, and I consider that purpose to be a healing purpose, and I'll talk about that. So business actually is a way to heal us, to heal our companies, to heal our society and the planet. So as just to give you a refresher, there are 4 pillars of conscious capitalism. We have been focused last week and this week on the first pillar, which is healing. We're going to then move into the other pillars as we go along. So our focus today again is on purpose. Now here's a radical sounding statement that the purpose of business is not to make a profit. That the purpose of business actually is to produce profitable solutions to the problems of people and the planet. And certainly the purpose cannot be about profiting while hurting people or the planet. I would say there are too many businesses out there that are actually making money, but simultaneously, if you do a full accounting of the cost and the impact that they're having on people's lives, on the communities, on the environment, on other species, etc., you're actually causing more pain and suffering than the value that you're generating through your profit. So again, this is about creating profitable solutions to the problems of people and the planet, and profit not just for the investors, but profit in a sense, well-being and value for all of our stakeholders. A couple of quick examples, and Haley will actually have a lot more to explain these ideas to you, but Whole Foods Market, a company that started in 1978 with the idea that it matters what you put into your body. It matters to your health, and it matters to the health of the food system, how we produce food, and it matters to the health of the planet, right? And so that is their passion, and that's what drives them. And Haley was actually involved in actually helping them discover and how to articulate this to nourish people and the planet. It's a noble purpose, and it is as needed today as it was when they started 42 years ago. Google, even before they launched the business, wrote down their purpose. And it is to organize the world's information and make it easily accessible and useful. And those simple ideas, there's so much information, most of it is not organized, and it is hard to access it and hard to put it to use. But they have figured out how to create $1 trillion company out of that purpose while charging customers nothing at all, right? Most of us have never paid anything to Google, and yet it's an extraordinary purpose that has enabled them to add tremendous value. REI is Recreational Equipment Incorporated, so their purpose is to reconnect people with nature. You know, we had the CEO at our second Conscious Capitalism conference way back in 2009, and she said, you know, our children are spending 55 hours a week in front of a screen. It's probably more than that now, right? And only 20 minutes of unstructured time in nature. And she said, we are part of nature, and yet we are completely disconnected from nature. What are we doing to ourselves? She literally had tears in her eyes. So our passion, she said, is to connect you back to nature, right? To help you learn how you can go camping and hiking and do all the things and teach you about all of that, get you excited so that you will then become a good steward of our planet. Waste Management is a company. So, you know, Whole Foods was born with a sense of higher purpose. There are other companies that, just like us human beings, discover purpose in midlife. Waste Management was a company that was all about taking your garbage and putting it in the ground. Right? So they owned about 275 huge landfills. And that's where they would take your trash and dump it. And their whole valuation on Wall Street was based upon their ownership of those assets, the landfills. And then along comes a new CEO, and he basically says, we're going to make landfills obsolete. And we're actually going to recover value from the waste stream. So getting to zero landfills, they work with Walmart and other companies to help them figure out how to not send anything to the landfills. Right? And they say we now generate about $12 billion of revenues from people to haul away their trash. But we believe that there's at least $13 to $15 billion of value in that waste stream. So we're going to extract that. They've set up hundreds of recycling plants and energy generation plants, etc. So that ultimately, you know, they've in a way transformed from a company that just takes away your garbage to an environmental services and consulting business. So now they are part of the solution. Previously, they were part of the problem. They were taking your trash, putting it in the ground where centuries, if not millennia, you know, it would just sit there and poison all kinds of the environment around it. So as I said, I believe that every great purpose can be thought of as a healing purpose. Why? Because if you look around in our world, you know, there is a lot of suffering. There's a lot of needs that people have, right? Every major city we find these favelas, for example, right? I mean, we know that 17,000 children die of preventable causes every day. We know that depression, anxiety, drug addiction, suicides are all rising. There's a lot of suffering in the world, even in rich countries. It's not about just economics. So I believe that every business should try to be part of the healing, which we define as alleviate suffering, reduce that suffering, elevate joy, bring more joy into the world through our business, and enable healthy growth. Right? Companies that grow, and as they grow, life gets better and they create more flourishing all around them. Right? And people grow as well. So that's the idea of a healing purpose. And it stands for the qualities of a great purpose. A great purpose is heroic. It is not easy to do, but it is worth doing. And we'll talk about each of these. It's evolving. As the company evolves, as the needs of the society change, the purpose also changes and evolves. It's aligning. It aligns all your stakeholders together. And this is the big link between purpose and stakeholders, right? If you don't have a purpose, then the default purpose is profit maximization. And when that's the purpose, then every stakeholder, like the employees, look at their work and say, okay, I need to maximize my profit, which means I need to work as little and get paid as much as I can. Customers say, I want the lowest price every time. I have no loyalty to this company or any other company. Suppliers want the highest margin, right? Which means they cut corners and cut costs where they can so that they can maximize their profits. Society wants to tax you as much as possible, right? So when you don't have a shared purpose and shared values, everybody becomes a taker from that system. And a spiritual principle is in order to win, we have to give. Everybody becomes a giver when you all believe in that purpose and what that company is trying to do. And as they say in the spiritual wisdom, the more you give, the more you shall receive. And that's what these companies are able to do. It's rooted in love. Everything that we talk about has to be rooted from a genuine place of caring and love for humanity, for our planet, right? For all other living things. It's inspiring. It gets you out of bed in the morning. It's natural and it's galvanizing. So let's just take a quick look at each of these. The purpose journey is a heroic journey if you aim high enough. And Haley will talk about, you know, what's the appropriate level to aim. And she will actually talk a lot about Southwest Airlines, which has transformed air travel over its 50 years, right? It has taken something that used to be only a luxury for a few people and it made it something that virtually everybody can afford, certainly in the United States, right? They took away the fear, they made it affordable, and they made it accessible. Ford, likewise, did something, Henry Ford, when he created the Model T, he said, I want to produce a car for the great multitude, right? So he doubled the pay of his workers and he lowered the price with mass production from, I think, from $1,200 in the beginning to $160. Okay, I'm just going to restart this so we get the subtitles again. That happens sometimes in PowerPoint. Right, so he produced a car that was affordable. He said, I want my workers to be able to own this car. So the whole idea of automobiles as a mass consumption, the whole mass market around cars, taking a luxury and making it affordable, that was a huge, huge transformation. And of course, Apple, Steve Jobs said, I want to make a dent in the universe, right? I want to produce something that will amplify human abilities. And so these are all extraordinary, life-changing purposes that these companies took on and ultimately really achieved. Purpose, as I said, is evolutionary. Evolution has a purpose. It's not just random mutations. Everything that's happening, this universe, we started with basic particles, right? Like quarks, and they came together to form atoms, and they came together to form molecules, and they came together and became basic organisms, and those evolved into higher level organisms, and ultimately human beings, right? So there's a trajectory. It's moving towards more togetherness, more mutuality, more embrace, more love, I would say, right? And if that is the case, then we are part of that journey and we should be part of that process. Right? This is what evolution demands of us. This is what evolution seeks of us. We are an instrument of something, of the emerging future. Right? How do we think about ourselves in terms of what is the future that we're envisioning and how do we act today in order to realize that, recognizing that this is our journey, right? That we're moving towards these kind of ideas. And Whole Foods, of course, has been a company that has done that. They started out simply by saying, let's just produce or sell natural and organic food, but they've broadened their vision as the needs have evolved, right? They have expanded and they've set up multiple, I think 5 or 6 foundations, the Whole Planet Foundation that is about converting farmers to natural and organic. They loan in about 69 countries. The Whole Kids Foundation, which is bringing salad bars and vegetable gardens into schools so we can have healthy school lunches. The Whole Cities Foundation that is bringing healthy food into the inner cities like Detroit and Chicago and New Orleans and other places where there is no access to healthy food. The Global Animal Partnership, which is recognizing that the way animals are treated in the factory farming system is really, they're tortured and they're leading unnatural lives. So how can we have humane treatment of animals in the factory farming system? So again, all of these initiatives, in addition to the core business, are aimed at this idea of we're evolving as our consciousness evolves and as the needs of the world evolve. And as I said, it aligns everybody together, right? It's like a magnet pointing everybody in the same direction, right? The purpose. And in a way, it's also like the glue, or I also call it, the amniotic fluid that's holding everybody together. It's rooted in love. It flows from, the most powerful human quality is the capacity for love, right? And that is also true in organizations. I believe there's a huge, huge untapped capacity for caring in most organizations. And this is the deepest aspect of what it means to be a human being. It's the most powerful power in the universe, right? Is love. And that's what we need to always be coming from in our business as well. It's inspiring. Right? It inspires people. You don't say, I've got to go to work. You say, I've got a job to do. I've got something. People are excited to get to work. If you go to Patagonia Monday morning, you'll see people running in and running up the stairs. They can't wait to get to work. Whereas everybody else is saying, thank God it's Friday, and heart attacks are higher on Mondays for typical businesses. But when you are doing something that you genuinely are inspired by, then that unleashes tremendous energy and creativity inside you. A good example is when John Kennedy said in the early 1960s, right, that we will commit ourselves to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth. That galvanized, hundreds of thousands of people to work towards that vision. And sure enough, in 1969, that was realized. Our purpose has to be natural. In other words, it has to be in harmony with nature, right? Not seeking to conquer or dominate. For a long time, that's been our mindset, that we need to overcome nature, right? We need to harness and use nature. But now we're saying we need to live. First of all, we need to learn from nature, right? Biomimicry and all of these fields. There's so much brilliant wisdom in nature itself. And we need to be in harmony with nature so that we are actually restoring nature as our business evolves, right? And finally, it's galvanizing. Galvanizing means, again, it moves you to action. As Martin Luther King said, we have a fierce urgency of now, right? But this is not a fear of what is below, but it's really the pull of what is above us, right? What we can strive for, what could be. So if you look at how purpose leads to performance, and Haley's going to talk about this as well, but I just thought I would share, this is from a very new academic article by Rebecca Henderson, who is at Harvard Business School, just wrote a book about reimagining capitalism. This is a way to think about the process whereby this leads to performance, right? So when you have a clear purpose that is meaningful and that is implemented, not just words on a wall, but actually we live by it, right? So there's a shared vision. What will the world look like? There's shared beliefs, right? The purpose arises from a set of values and beliefs, right? That we believe that this is what life is about and this is what our business should be about. And that gives people meaning for their work, right? People have a sense of pride. People have a sense of excitement, right? And authenticity. I can be who I am because I work for this company, Whole Foods, because I'm a foodie. I care about health. Therefore, this is who I am. My work is an extension of me. Right? It's not just a job, it's not a career, it's a calling. It becomes part of my identity, and it's pro-social. It's in harmony, alignment with what society needs and wants, right? And when you do all of these things, then there's alignment across stakeholders. We have intrinsic motivation. I don't need to give you a bonus. I don't need to threaten you. You are self-organizing, self-managing, and self-motivating. Right? All our employees are just excited and they're creative and they're coming up with ideas. You don't need managers really to tell them what to do. And of course, there's a high level of trust because everybody there believes in that, right? And of course, all of those things have an enormous consequence on performance, and that's what ultimately, of course, leads to higher performance. Okay, so that's just a brief sort of introduction to these ideas, and I will now turn it back to our wonderful host.